Uproar continuing and growing today over the detention of a legal U.S. resident with a green card who's being held by federal immigration authorities after armed agents showed up at his door to arrest and deport him. Not, it should be clear, for doing anything illegal. He's not alleged to have committed a crime, but solely for his political speech and activities. Mahmoud Khalil is a recent graduate student at Columbia University who made speeches and negotiated on behalf of pro-Palestinian protesters at the school last year. On Saturday, federal agents arrested Khalil at his university-owned apartment, taking him to an ICE detention center in New Jersey and then flying him to one in Louisiana, preparing to remove him from the country. Yesterday, a White House official told the Free Press that the basis for targeting Khalil is being used as a blueprint for investigations against other students. Khalil is a threat to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States, said the official, noting this calculation was the driving force behind the arrest. The allegation here is not that he was breaking the law, said the official. That's literally the basis for arresting and trying to deport Khalil, a guy who is, we should note, married to an American citizen who happens to be 8 months pregnant. As David Cole, Georgetown law professor, former ACLU legal director, recently put it, the First Amendment does not distinguish between citizens and non-citizens. It applies to everyone. On Monday, a federal judge blocked ICE from deporting Khalil while he considered a legal challenge to his arrest. And as those protests against his detention gather size and forth both yesterday and today, take it as a sign of how worried people are that the government is basically putting a dissident in prison and loudly boasting that there will be more. Amy Greer is one of Mahmoud Khalil's attorneys, and she joins me now for her first TV interview on Mahmoud's case. Ms. Greer, thank you so much. First, I just want to ask if you've gotten a chance to talk to your client. Are you in touch with him, and do you know where he is?
Yes, and first I just want to say that I wouldn't call Mahmoud a dissident. I'd call him a human rights defender, and I think that's just a really important thing to highlight here. And yes, I have had a chance to talk with Mahmoud each day since, gosh, what day is it even today? Tuesday. We first heard from him yesterday, Monday, excuse me. It's been a long few days, as I'm sure you can imagine. So I have been able to talk to him a couple of times now, and I know his family is also in touch with him.
My understanding is the government's contention is they're using part of the federal code in which the Secretary of the State can unilaterally just deem someone deportable for national security or foreign policy reasons. Have they provided evidence? Is there process around that determination that they've provided to you?
You know, Chris, this is all just a rapidly developing situation. Mahmoud was taken just at 8:30 on Saturday night. We have slowly been privy to the paperwork, but it's coming in slowly. So we do not have access to evidence or any bases that have been provided to us outside of social media or media reports as to how and why the Secretary of State or the Department of State or the President or whoever is behind this. We have not yet had put into our hands a justification for this. Only that we know the provision that you just named, and beyond that, we do not yet have any more information. This is rapidly developing, and so, you know, certainly things are unfurling quickly. But yeah, as of now, no, we don't have that justification.
Right. I mean, just a cornerstone, obviously, of sort of common law tradition is that you have to name charges and you have to allow the accuser to face them. That's a sort of basic part of process. It doesn't. So what you're just saying is there's been no representation to you as attorneys of what the infraction is, to the extent there is one.
Well, I mean, this is the thing about the situation is, you know, Mahmoud is not accused of any crime, and this is an immigration process. And I think something that many of us in the United States are paying attention to with this new administration is the immigration system and how few due process rights there are in that system, and how the rules of evidence and the things people typically think of, like when they watch, criminal procedural dramas on television and they see that there's evidence and, there's an exchange of information and all of this kind of stuff, that doesn't apply in the immigration context. And this is all happening in that regulatory immigration context, which is all under the purview of the executive branch. It's outside of the purview, of our Article III courts in the United States.
Although presumably the Constitution should still apply. I want to ask you a question because
presumably, yes.
And I want to make clear that saying that, say, I support Hamas as a statement is First Amendment protected speech. You can say that as an American. That's First Amendment protected, clear black letter law, that is. And also that many people opposed to Mahmoud's worldview accuse people like him of being Hamas supporters. That is a common thing that's leveraged. But I want to just ask you if it's fair or accurate to characterize him as a Hamas supporter, since that is essentially what is being said about him by many of the people supporting his detention.
Yes, and I think that's incredibly problematic. Mahmoud is a human rights defender. Mahmoud stands for the dignity and human rights for all. And what he saw happening in Gaza and also in his family's ancestral home in the West Bank, what he's been seeing, and what many students around the country, and I hope all of us have been seeing, is alarming and has caused many of us, including Mahmoud, to come forward and say that we do not stand for 2,000-pound bombs being dropped on women, children, and men, grown men who, are living their lives and, are being attacked from the air without any protection, no ability to leave. And Mahmoud stands for dignity and human rights, and everything that he has, put forward, everything that he stands for is grounded in those values. And I think it's also really important to note that Mahmoud is a Palestinian. His family was forcibly displaced from Tiberias, Palestine. They became refugees in Syria. He grew up in a refugee camp in Syria, and so he knows in his bones what the experience is of so many people, both in Gaza and in the occupied West Bank, and felt compelled to use his voice and his incredible mediation and negotiation skills, his incredible ability to put words to the pain and to the rights that he's standing up for. And so I just think that it's so important that remains central. Yeah. And I'll also just say, he is a beloved member of a community of people who are standing with him and who have been so moved and learned so much from his ability to speak these truths to power.
Amy Greer, who's a lawyer for Mahmoud Khalil, thank you very much. Appreciate it.